last night, once I got everything going, I forgot to record anything. So better do that today. Right, I'm recording. Right, so welcome everybody to today's class. It's lesson number 9 of the 10. And what we're going to be doing today is continuing with the work we're doing. So we've been looking specifically at some different artists to sort of learn some techniques or some of their ways of working, but also to bring in some of the stuff that we've been experimenting so much with over the last 8 weeks. And that includes obviously the collage and everything else, as well as acrylic paints and all the other things we've been doing. So last week I was looking at Judith Bergerson, her work, and I also added in some of the things that we've been talking about with the collage, and I also applied some candle wax to it and sanded back some different areas on there as well. Okay, so we'll go and have a look at that picture. So this is the picture just over here. This is the Judith Bergerson picture that I was working from, and I was working from a little bit of a close-up of that really. So if I just sort of zoom in a little bit, so you can see on here there is a little bit of texture, as in something has been applied to the surface of the picture. It looks like some paper's been applied to that. I was looking sort of from the bottom here, from the green area upwards. So there's all sorts of different things going on. We've got stippling with the brushes over here in the corner. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about this particular painting was how she'd painted the branches in and then also painted in between those branches as well, to sort of get that sense of light coming back through. But then we've got little bits of detail down here as well. So I've allowed myself to really be a little bit creative with it as well, and put in some of my own ideas, which we'll have a look at just to remind us what I did in a few minutes. So I'll just get that down there. Now I've got a few artists to show you today, because I've started looking at a new one. So I'm going to just put her away and get these two out. So the first one here is Scott Naismith, and that's this one. And he's a Scottish artist who's got a very distinctive colour palette and style of working. But this is really nice to explore and experiment with, because you've got these colours, as I've just said, but you've got a beautiful sense of light in the picture as well, with this lovely golden colour towards the background and these layers of paint back over the top of the mountains in the background. But then leading you into the picture, in the foreground we've got this lovely patchwork, if you like, of brush strokes which have been layered on top of each other in different sizes and in different brushes as well. So really nice painting, and I think whenever you see one of his works, you'll recognize it straight away because of his really nice color palette that he uses. So you've got these really vivid blues and purples, and then these nice sort of zingy greens, if you like, but then much more of a softer approach towards the background with those brush strokes as well, with these nice grays to balance out the image overall. Now the other one that I've not seen before, which I found for you, is this one. So this is by an artist called Iris Scott, and I loved this picture because it was so creative and so interesting. You've got a wonderful sense of movement in this picture. So thinking back, you know, if we think of Van Gogh and all that, so Van Gogh uses these lovely brush strokes in his cypress trees and in the sky to show movement, and she's done something similar, but she's done it in her own way and kind of pushed it even further. So this grass, if you like, on the ground has this kind of nice curve going through it, which leads into the foreground or into the background, if you like. And then she's been very inventive with these circles, which I think is quite reminiscent of an artist called Gustav Klimt, who uses these very decorative motifs in his work as well. So a really nice painting to look at. A lot of work if you're going to have a go at copying it, but a really inspiring piece, I think, to work on. And if you're interested in experimenting a little bit more with your brush strokes and things, and colour, because you've got opposite colours, blues and yellows in there, then that's a great piece to experiment with. So now the artist that I'm looking at the moment, so I'm just going to bring these three out, is an artist who I might have mentioned in the past, but she's known as Erin Hanson, and there's quite a lot of videos if you like her work. One of the things that she's quite an innovator at the same time, actually, because she's worked out a special way of 3D printing her paintings. And by that I mean she prints out her paintings so that all of the brush strokes on the surface of her prints are actually bumpy on the surface. So it actually looks like a real painting when it's printed. And you can't hardly tell the difference between the original and a print, which is quite amazing. But that's besides the point. She's been to lots of different locations with her work, and one of the, I think these are more recent ones, is where she's been out to the desert and painted these cactuses over here on the right hand side, which is what I'm looking at the moment. And she calls her style of work open impressionism. I'll just find the right one. There it is. Open impressionism. I'm not quite sure what the open means, but it's an interesting way of working because she applies all of her own sort of brush strokes and mark making techniques, but also she has a very kind of strong bright color palette in there as well. Let me just bring that one up a little bit and we'll have a look at that one. So this is the one that I'm working on at the moment. Now the reason I've chosen this one is because you've got these really distinctive, obviously, cactuses in here, and they're different sizes leading into the background, so it adds a lot of interest there. And we've got these lovely mark making techniques towards the bottom, so I'm going to be working on some of those today. And then if we move up to the top, we've got this wonderful sky with these very small brush strokes and mixed colors with the blues and purples. So what I've started with on this one is I have put a background color on first and then started working back over the top, so kind of a mid-tone yellow ochre with a bit of red, a Venetian red mixed together on the background, and then I've started applying the blues with really thick opaque paint on top. So we'll have a quick look at what I've started last night in a few seconds. But again, a really inspiring artist, kind of reminds me a little bit of the last artist we looked at, Iris Scott. So these pictures, I've put all of those onto my website for you. So if you can have a look at those, but there are absolutely loads, particularly with Erin Scott, because Erin Hanson, sorry, she's got loads of artwork. She's very prolific. One of the things I found out last night is that for the last 10 years, she has painted one painting a week. So you can imagine how many pictures there are of her work. And there's a video where you can see how her style has developed over those 10 years as well. So if you've got a moment and you fancy and you like her work, then have a look and see what you think. So this is what I did last week, just to remind you. So I used sandpaper on that, which I hadn't previously talked about too much in this particular course that we've done, but in areas like this I'd applied lots of candle wax over the surface, painted back over with this opaque greeny grey, and then afterwards I used the sandpaper. But you don't have to just use sandpaper, you can scratch in with your well, I'm using my nails at the moment, but you can scratch away in different ways there. Down here I use candle wax too, but while the paint that I put on the top, this dark green, was wet, I scratched out these lines. And over here you can see wallpaper that I put on top with the the bumpy wallpaper. And what I did here is I just did kind of a dry brushing technique after I'd painted it, a dry brush technique with a slightly darker colour to get this kind of texture coming through. And I've done that in other areas like over here as well. And I was talking about how the light comes through the trees, and I really enjoy painting in between the branches as well to get that such light. Oh yes, and there was, of course, I talked a little bit about using bubble wrap, so you can still see some of those marks just over there from the bubble wrap as well. So I had a lot of fun playing with that one, and this is what I've been doing last night. So we've got the Erin Hanson picture just over here. You can see how vivid and bright these colours are. It doesn't come out so bright on my screen here with my own painting, but basically what I started with was this lovely yellow ochre sort of mid-tone in the background, and then I started up here with this blue sky using a primary blue and some white, and then as I progressed with the sky, some of these purples that I've used here started to sort of creep into other areas of the picture. Now with the cactus, I noticed that on the cactus on Erin Hanson's original there, you can see that it's got these almost like dark outlines around the kind of the outside of the cactus, and then the highlights, the red bits, have been applied on top. So I took that approach with my own little cactus just over here as well, and I painted it with a dark brown first of all, and then I started to apply the reds back over the top of it, and it started to come out reasonably nicely there. So I'm going to continue with a few cactuses before moving further down to the bottom of the landscape just down here as well. So that'll be the next stage. And I'm very tempted as well to try out a little bit again of the textured wallpaper on there too, just because that's what we've been doing and it's experimental and we can see how that comes out. In fact, just thinking about it, some of the wallpaper with the lines and the bumps on it might be really nice for the cactuses as well, and then dry brushing back over the top. So there's lots of things to try out. I know that some of you will still be working on your Judith Bergerson pictures or whatever else you've chosen to do. So yeah, carry on with that and enjoy the process. And if you've got any questions, then I'm happy to obviously have a look at that with you and answer those questions that you've got. But there we go. Okay, so I hope that all makes sense, and if you've got any questions, please ask. But we'll crack on now with our pictures and things. Okay, so as I mentioned just a short while ago, what I'm doing here is adding the red paint onto this kind of dark browned cactus that I painted previously, partly so that I can get these nice outlines, but building on the highlights for the red of the cactus in Erin Hanson's painting. I'm actually putting the highlights on to help create this kind of three-dimensional effect. So this is the bit that I kind of enjoyed, I think, quite a lot here when doing this painting. The start of it with doing the sky, it was a little bit disorientating, if you like, because the clouds are very sort of all over the sky, although they've got this lovely diagonal cut to them. With the mountains in the background there, that helped to sort of join the cactuses a little bit more to the rest of the picture.
and give you a sense of space as well in there. So I had a lot of fun. Again, I was using very similar colours to the sky, but in more quantity with the purples and the blues. And then I did go back into the sky, as you can see, and just touch that up again. And I do go back and do that a little bit later. So I mentioned as well putting on some collage paper. I've just done that just really as a little bit extra. I didn't need to do it particularly with this painting, but use a bit of corrugated, not corrugated, bumpy embossed wallpaper just down the bottom there, and that might just add a little bit more texture into the foreground to then draw your attention as you're looking at the picture. So I noticed when watching Erin Hanson's videos of her painting, watched a speeded up one and a bit like this, she does create this kind of background of colour. She varies the colour on the background actually according to where she's going to paint different things, but I've just done this yellow ochre in the background of this one, yellow ochre and a bit of Venetian red. But I noticed particularly that Erin uses these dark kind of outlines to map out her picture using some paint. So I just thought I'd take that idea into the picture. Once I'd put down a bit of green, I thought I need to do the outlines, and then I remembered Erin Hanson's work. So once I've got most of the outlines in, what I started to do then is put in some of the greens from the trees at the top. So a yellowy green, but with some yellow ochre mixed into it to get that, keep that earthy kind of feel going on in the tree. We don't want really stark greens in the background, but we do want them to stand out a little bit, particularly because it's the top of the bushes, and the top of the bushes will catch the light from the sky because they're a bit higher up, and then you've got more shadows just under that. And this was a lot of fun, applying the red because we're kind of bringing together the cactuses with the ground as well. And one thing that Erin mentioned when I watched the video, she talked about how every brush stroke needs to be kind of curved or have this sense of energy and movement. So almost like every brush stroke that you put down should count. Now I didn't take it to that extreme, but what I've done here is had that in mind and thought about the direction my brush strokes are going in. So on the bottom of the picture, we go up at an angle of about 45 degrees, I suppose, to create this sense of movement rather than just being straight or flat. Got a sense of movement in those brush strokes in there as well. And then as we continue, you can see things starting to come together. I've looked particularly at the shadows and things, and I mixed this kind of dark blue brown sort of colour. So that would have been a little bit of ultramarine, a bit of brown, and plenty of red mixed in. And again, once again, because I'm working on this background that I mentioned earlier, I'm constantly layering colours on top of each other. So I've got reds going on top of reds, going on top of reds, and I'm mixing in a little bit of white sometimes with that red so that I get it even more opaque. And the thing that really finished this off for me, this picture, was something I really enjoyed about this picture, was the fact that we had these like these turquoisey sorts of cactuses that you can see on the floor below the cactus, just where I was working just a second ago. And then it was a case of just touching up a few areas and things on here to enhance it further and just refine the picture. Now, one thing I should point out as well, my picture is about A4 size. So what's that, 30 by 21. Whereas Erin Hanson often paints on quite a large scale. And indeed, one of the videos I've seen of her working, she's working on absolute gigantic painting. Fantastic artist, really inspiring and beautiful colours for her, what she calls her open impressionist style. And just a gorgeous picture. One thing that also I found really inspiring was that for the last 10 years, since 2000 or whenever the video was made, she had been making one painting a week for 10 years. So you can see and imagine how over that period of time somebody's work can seriously develop. So a really enjoyable